you want to find out about someone, ask them what's on their MP3 player, whether it's an iPod or iPhone. Because to ask someone, what kind of music do you listen to, really reveals something about themselves. Just like if you want to find out about who a person is, well, ask them what their friends are. This one companion is music. Now, I'm a bit of an old soul, and so I like the music of the 60s and 70s, particularly the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and ABBA. Now, all of us, I think, share the same respect for those three bands. Not only for the quantity of their work, but also the quality of their work. For ABBA had one #1 US single, the Beach Boys had 4, and the Beatles 20. So they were very, very successful. And how easy it is to enjoy their music. You can easily go to iTunes or YouTube, or you can still go to a music store and purchase music. But to really appreciate what it took to actually make this wonderful music. Now, I'm a bit of a nerd, and so I always like to find out, how did these great creations come to be? And like I mentioned, when we listen to music, we take it for granted, all the effort that goes into it. And all three groups have their own struggles to create beautiful music. Brian Wilson, the creative force of the Beach Boys, well, he struggled from stage fright, and also he suffered from mental illness and even substance abuse because of the work that went into the music. ABBA, the 4 of them, so there were 2 couples, they were married together. And one of the most beautiful songs, Winner Takes It All, was written in the midst of their divorces. So to imagine something very, very beautiful comes out of something that took so much effort, that their whole lives are spilled out onto these lyrics. And the Beatles, well, of course, for those who are familiar with Beatlemania, that they were in the eye of the hurricane, but around them was just seeming chaos. They couldn't even leave their hotel rooms for their physical safety. So what they would often do is, if they were in a bathroom or in the back of a bus, when they had a little bit of time, or in the recording studio, that they would just jot down their music quickly, and yet from that tension came beautiful music. And so the creative efforts are very much a part of the struggle, but the struggle was transfigured by the success of their beautiful music. And likewise for us, the cross transfigures us to enjoy the glory of the resurrection. So in today's gospel, we encounter Jesus being transfigured, which is a stark contrast from last week's gospel. So in last week's gospel, Jesus is in the desert. He's alone and he's famished. Well, in today's gospel is, like I mentioned, the contrast. Jesus is on a high mountain. He's not alone, but has Peter, James, and John with him, as well as Elijah and also Moses. And he's glorified. And so the contrast between the desert and the mount are very stark. And so Jesus wants to reveal to his disciples, hey, everything's going to be okay. So he offers this moment of transfiguration. Now, why does he do it? Well, had we read the very first part of the 17th chapter, the first verse, it would have said 6 days ago. Well, what happened 6 days ago? Well, Jesus mentions to his disciples the conditions of discipleship. He says, unless you want to be my followers, take up your cross and follow me. That those who save their lives will lose it, and those who lose their lives for my sake will find it. And so what Jesus said 6 days previous to the transfiguration, even when he says at the end of the gospel, he says, tell no one until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Whoa. So this is a good friend who reveals all this to them. But he wants to give them a taste. Hey, all the struggle that you will undergo, the shadow of the cross, is going to come down heavy, but I will give you a moment of glory. And so Jesus is transfigured. And also the very fact that Jesus is transfigured, and he says it has Moses and Elijah with him, are also significant in terms of the fulfillment of what Jesus will do, his glory. Moses is the one who brings the law to the people, and Elijah is the one who's the great prophet. For the book of Zechariah says that when Elijah comes, so too will come the Messiah. And Jesus acknowledged that it is John the Baptist who is the prophet like Elijah who reveals the glory of Jesus to all. And so the cross transfigures us to enjoy the glory of the resurrection. Now what's also interesting is when Peter says, let us build 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Well, what are these dwellings? Well, the Jews have 3 great feasts, just like we would say Christians have 2 great feasts, Easter and Christmas. Well, the Jews had 3. One of them was the Feast of Pentecost, the Feast of Passover, which is for us fulfilled in Easter, but also the Feast of Tabernacles, or Booths. So this was probably the time of the year in which Jesus is transfigured. And so throughout, probably as Peter's looking over the mountain, seeing all these tents, he's also thinking, hey, we got to build some tents here too. Why are these tents significant? And why would people be living in tents? The Feast of Booths is a commemoration that God protected his people while they were wandering in the desert for 40 years. And so it's always remember, hey, the Lord's always with us. He's going to protect us. And so for Peter, therefore, to be inspired by what he saw is say, hey, let's build these 3 booths here so we can all be protected by Jesus, by Moses, and Elijah. That would be a great thing. But it's not really the case, because it's not that Elijah or Moses who's going to offer ultimate protection of the people. It is Jesus. And it's the words of the Father who say, hey, this is my beloved Son. Listen to him. Which is exactly what the Father says about Jesus at his baptism. He says, hey, just keep following him. You're going to be okay. And ultimately, and then the transfiguration of Jesus ceases, and then they have to go back to their work. And especially when Jesus says, hey, don't tell this to anyone until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Because really, it's not the transfiguration that reveals Jesus' glory, it is his resurrection. And yet, the cross is coming more and more forward, and the tragedy, the horror that it will bring. But they need a moment of this grace, of this glory to be revealed in them. Say, hey, just keep on going, follow me, listen to me. So the cross transfigures us to enjoy the glory of the resurrection. So what about us? Have we ever encountered the transfiguration? Have we ever had a moment in our lives that, okay, that's good? Because Jesus said, if you want to be my followers, you must take up your cross and follow me. Now, I would say none of us would be here if we did not have a moment of the transfiguration. Whether it's, let's say, for example, a mother carrying her children for 9 months, and the agony of that, and yet to see the glory of this little child, yeah, that's a moment of the transfiguration. Or, enjoying the birds chirping. It's like a sign of spring coming. Hey, so all these moments of transfiguration. I mean, not all of us want to carry the cross, because the cross is difficult. But we always need a moment of transfiguration. Now, if I may be so bold to share with you a moment of transfiguration that I've had. Well, I've, when in today's gospel, when Peter, James, and John are overcome by fear, Jesus kind of touched them and says, it's going to be okay, let's get up. Well, I've been scared 3 times in my life. Capital S, scared. When my father died when I was 9 years old, my mother died when I was 22 years old, and then walking through the doors of the rectory, 316 Windermere, for the first time, realizing, oh boy, I'm responsible for all this. I'm scared. And so the good Lord has always given me moments, these transfigurations, when I need the boost. Because without the transfiguration, the grind of life, or even the tragedies of life, can easily become overwhelming. Well, the moment of my transfiguration came on June the 7th, 2013. It was a Friday. Some of you will know because we had our Angels on High fundraising dinner. Now, that took so much effort to put together. And so at 5:30, walking through those doors and seeing how beautifully decorated this gym was, we had the Keister family fiddlers playing beautiful music. And we had 100 people already here at 5:30. Wow, this is cool. This is nice. And realized at 1 o'clock that afternoon, everything was in that back corner, the tables, the chairs, the wine glasses, the plates. They, oh boy, how are we going to pull it off? But it happened. Everybody kind of gave a little bit. And so just to enjoy the moment of the transfiguration, yeah, this is cool. And yet, just like with Peter, James, and John, it's not the moment of the transfiguration that's great, because then they got to pack up their tents and go. Well, same thing. At about 11 o'clock, okay, pack everything up and we got to go. We got to move on. And so likewise, too, that for me, it was a moment of transfiguration. We had to put everything away and go. And so the cross reveals, transfigures us to glory in the resurrection. And so Jesus says, tell no one about this vision until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Well, can we also share the transfiguration to others? And I would say we have to. By virtue of our faith, by virtue of being plunged into the baptismal waters of Christ's death and resurrection, we can be the ones who say, yes, let us share this vision with others. And I think we can do it in 3 ways this week, to transfigure others who are carrying their own crosses, to share in the resurrection. And I think we focus on fasting, prayer, and almsgiving. Those are the 3 beautiful ways that we can transfigure our world. Because fasting is saying, okay, I'm going to give up something for my own body. But if we use that to say, okay, if I'm going to give up something, well, I'm going to use it, say, for example, give up coffee or a coffee. And we take that money to give it to a charity. Well, it works at charity. And also prayers, this intimacy we have with the Lord, especially when we or know other people who are taking up their crosses and are overwhelmed by that experience. Well, we bring it to prayer. Say, Lord, bring your transfiguration to my life or to the life of others. And so the cross transfigures us to glory in the resurrection. Well, if we look at the Beatles and ABBA and the Beach Boys, realizing, you listen to all these songs and enjoy it, but really to appreciate the effort that went into making these beautiful songs, the cross of the creative efforts that went into it. But they transfigure that struggle into the beautiful music. And so this week, let's take up our own crosses, because it is the cross, and especially the hope of the transfiguration, that will allow us to celebrate the glory of the resurrection.